So imagine this. A speech given back in 1993 that predicts a new great depression, claims we're all reincarnated souls from Atlantis, and proposes a single world religion to save humanity. It's a pretty wild set of ideas, right? Today, we're going to unpack that very prophecy. So let's dive right in.
All right, here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at the prophecy itself. Then, we'll get into the spiritual crisis the speaker says we're in. After that, we'll hear this incredible story about Atlantis, see what the proposed solution, a new global religion, is all about, and finally wrap up with the huge choice it says humanity has to make.
First up, a prophecy from 1993. This is all about looking back at the past and a warning for the future. So, to really get this, we need to set the scene. What was the world actually like back then? Okay, so the exact date is December 23rd, 1993. The Cold War has just ended, right? But instead of this big sigh of relief and stability, the world is actually grappling with a growing global recession. There's this deep sense of uncertainty just hanging in the air everywhere you look, politically and economically. And right into that anxious atmosphere, the speaker steps up and says this. You can tell right away this isn't going to be some simple commentary on current events. No, it's framed as a message about destiny. That sets this incredibly serious, almost prophetic tone for everything that's about to come. So the first big warning is all about the economy. The speaker basically says, you know this recession everyone's talking about? It's not just a downturn. It's the start of a slide into a brand new Great Depression. But here's the twist. He says this economic crisis, it's just a symptom of a much, much deeper problem. Which brings us to our second section, the crisis of a soulless age. This is the speaker's diagnosis of what he calls the 20th century spiritual sickness. He argues the real problem isn't the economy, it's a kind of sickness in the human heart. And here's the core of his critique. He says, look, the 20th century was amazing for science and economic growth, no doubt about it. But in chasing all that progress, we lost something huge along the way. We ended up with science without a heart and an economy without a heart. We basically forgot the spiritual foundation that makes it all meaningful. Now, to really hammer this point home, he digs way back into ancient history and brings up something called Baal worship. He says this was an old Phoenician religion all about commerce and materialism, and he connects it to a demon named Belial, or Beelzebub. His argument? That our modern godless capitalism is basically just a new version of this same ancient, soulless worship of greed. This really lays out his whole worldview. Think of it like a pyramid. At the very bottom, the foundation is religion, the source of all divine ideals. On top of that, you have politics, which is supposed to implement those ideals. Then economics to support it all, and science at the top to help us understand the world. But here's the kicker. His claim is that if you yank out that religious foundation, the whole thing just crumbles. It all becomes meaningless. All right, this next part is where things get really, really interesting. It's titled Echoes of Sunken Atlantis. To prove his point about what happens to civilizations that lose their soul, the speaker tells this incredible, epic story from, 10,000 years in the past. So here's how the story of Atlantis goes, according to the speech. Step 1. You have this amazing civilization, super advanced in science and economics. Sounds familiar, right? Step 2. But the people become spiritually corrupt. They start worshiping that same demon, Belial, instead of God. Step 3. For 1,000 years, God sends prophets to warn them, but they're persecuted and totally ignored. And finally, step 4. God pulls the final trigger and the whole continent just sinks into the ocean in a single day. So the parallel he's drawing here could not be more obvious. On one side, you have ancient Atlantis with its advanced science, prosperity, and spiritual emptiness. And on the other, you have the modern world with our advanced science, prosperity, and what he calls an economy without a heart. He's basically saying we're repeating the exact same pattern, walking the exact same path. And then he drops the biggest bombshell of the entire speech. He tells the audience, hey, this isn't just a fun history lesson. He claims that the people living on Earth right now are the reincarnated souls from Atlantis, that we've all been born again en masse to face the very same spiritual test a second time. Just let that sink in for a minute. Okay, so if we're all supposedly reincarnated souls from a doomed civilization about to repeat our biggest mistake, what's the way out? Well, the speech presents a pretty radical solution. It's time for a new global religion. This proposed solution is called the earthly right law. The idea is that it's a single, universal law straight from the divine, something that goes beyond all existing religions, all nationalities, all races, to finally unite all of humanity under one single truth.
Now, this is a really key point. This isn't about replacing Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, or anything else. The speaker claims his teaching is actually the root of all these major faiths. He even says he was present at the founding of all of them. So his mission now, he says, is to bring them all together, to unify them under that one original truth. And in this massive global plan, Japan gets a very specific job. The speech is clear. This isn't about nationalism or glory. It's about strategy. Japan is designated as the base for the light. It's meant to be the launch point, the headquarters, for spreading this message and saving the entire world.
So, with the problem laid out and the solution proposed with Japan as its launchpad, the speech brings it all home with a final stark choice for all of humanity. It's about our future, ruin or utopia. So the speech puts it to us directly. We are at a fork in the road. Which path are we going to choose? And this isn't framed as some far-off future decision. It's presented as an urgent choice we have to make right now, with consequences that will change the planet forever.
And wow, these two paths could not be more different. On one hand, you have the path of ruin. That's where we just keep doing what we're doing, more materialism, which leads to wars, chaos, massive natural disasters, and yep, even sinking continents. Déjà vu, right? But then there's the path of light. This means returning to faith in God and love for others. And the promise here is huge. Global peace, a new golden civilization, basically creating a real utopia right here on Earth.
And you have to remember, this wasn't said in an empty room. This message was delivered to 50,000 people. 50,000! And they weren't just there to be passive listeners. They were being called upon to start what he called a revolution for the hope of mankind, to literally change the destiny of the world. And that's how it all wraps up. The speech ends by completely redefining a national dream. It's not about economic might or glory anymore. The neo-Japanese dream, as he puts it, has to be about the salvation and happiness of all humankind. It's this incredibly ambitious global vision, all born from this prophecy for what he called a soulless age. It really leaves you with a huge question, doesn't it? When science and economics just aren't enough, what's supposed to fill that void?